Okay, so first of all, you can't make fun of my hair, and you can't make fun of Elsie if she gets into the picture. Um, but I wanted to kind of guide you through these first few chapters. First of all, just looking at the front cover, I think yours looks like this too. Why do you think Gary Paulson, who's the author, why do you think he named this book Hatchet? So whenever I ask you a question, you can go on the YouTube thing and pause and then either write down what your answer is or maybe write the question and then what your answer is. But I want you to really think about it. So pause and then come back to me when you're done. So hopefully you paused and you thought about that for a moment. Now, as you go through the book, so we're going to just read just the first 4 chapters this first time, and then hopefully we are going to meet on Monday at, I think, 3 o'clock your time. You and your mom and I are talking about that. So we're just going to take a look. I'm going to kind of guide you through these first 4 chapters, even though you can read them yourself. So the main character's name is Brian, and it talks about, just the first paragraph, it talks about how he's on this plane, but they call it a bush plane. So pause the YouTube video and go find out what a bush plane is, and then come back. Okay, so it talks about how loud it is for him, and I am curious. I want you to describe in words what the loudest thing is that you've ever heard, and jot that down. I hope you have like a little notebook, something that not only has lines for writing, but also some space for drawing, because I'm going to ask you to do some drawing too. But he says, even on that first page, he didn't have much to say, and he's with this pilot that he doesn't know. So keep reading, and I'm going to ask you to keep reading until you get to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th line of page 2. So take a minute and do that. Okay, so the 9th line talks about 6,000 feet. I want you to Google and maybe ask Google, like, what does it look like from 6,000 feet up in the air to the ground? You may have to ask it a couple of different ways, but you're going to get an answer. So pause, go do that, and then come back. Okay, so keep reading a little bit more, and in fact, I'm gonna read that with the second paragraph. Now Brian sat looking out the window with the roar thundering through his ears, and tried to catalog what had led up to his taking this flight. The thinking started. Always it started with a single word: divorce. He's going to say this word quite a few times throughout the book. So you know he's talking about his own parents' divorce. So now keep reading until you come to the next word that he repeats up at the top of page 3. So go ahead and read. And you got to the word. I hope you found it. The secret. I want to know, what do you think the secret is? So pause and write down, what do you think the secret is? And then come back and I will be here. So now what I'm going to ask you to do is read the next couple of pages on your own until you get to the middle of page 4, and then come back to me. So pause, and when you get to the middle of page 4, come back. Okay, so on the middle of page 4, it says, Brian shook his head. I'd better not. And the pilot says, sure, try it. I'm wondering, would you do it or would you not do it? I'd be scared out of my ever-loving mind. Okay, so keep reading until you get to the middle of page 5. So read until you get to the middle of page 5 and then come back and I will be here. Pause. Okay, on the middle of page 5, it says, the pilot nodded. All flying is easy, just takes learning, like everything else. Like everything else. Why do you think he repeats that? He took the controls back, then reached up and rubbed his left shoulder. Aches and pains, must be getting old. I'm going to tell you right now, Chloe, that he is foreshadowing. Gary Paulson, the author, is foreshadowing what's about to happen in this book. Any ideas? You might be thinking. So now, keep reading until you get to the middle of page 6. So, and pause and then come back when you get to the middle of page 6. Okay, so now you're at the middle of page 6. Now the plane lurched slightly to the right and Brian looked at the pilot. He was rubbing his shoulder again and there was the sudden smell of body gas in the plane. Yes, he tooted. More than that, really. Brian turned back to avoid embarrassing the pilot, who was obviously in some discomfort. Must have some stomach troubles. Now, what are you thinking is going on? Keep reading until you get to the middle of page 7. And just pause, and then when you get to the middle of page 7, come back to me. So here he says again, except for the smell. It says Brian took another look at the pilot, found him rubbing the shoulder and down the arm now, the left arm, letting go more gas and wincing. Probably something he ate, Brian thought. You think it's something he ate? Think it's more serious than that? And then I want you to keep reading until you get to the top of page 8. Pause it and then come back when you get to the top of page 8. So, Brian's mom gave him a hatchet. So, that's the name of the book, and his mom gave him a hatchet. Why would that be so important, do you think, in this book? Think about that. And if you need time to think, you can pause it. You can always pause it and come back. Read to the bottom of page 8, and then I'm going to ask you to draw what you think that looks like. Now, there's Elsie. Hello. Elsie just moved my microphone. What it looks like when he has the hatchet on his belt and rethreading his belt. Like, what does he look like? Draw what you think Brian looks like with that hatchet on his belt. And then come back. Okay, now that you've done that, and keep all these because I want to see them when we talk on Monday. Now, what I'm going to ask you to do is keep reading until the middle of page 10 when it says, and then he knew. So pause it and read to the middle of page 10. Okay, and then he knew. Brian knew. What did he know? What did he know by now? And pause that if you need to. And it says in the next paragraph, doesn't it? Let's read it together. The pilot's mouth went rigid. He swore and jerked a short series of slams into the seat, holding his shoulder now. Swore and hissed. Chest! Oh, God, my chest is coming apart. Brian knew now the pilot was having a heart attack. Keep on reading until you get to the end of the chapter, which is chapter 12. I'm sorry, it's on page 12, the end of chapter 1. So pause it when you get to the end of chapter 1, and then come back to me. So here he is now. Right? He's all alone, and the pilot is not moving. We don't know if the pilot's dead, do we? Do you think he's dead? I don't know. But we've got a couple of words that are important already. Divorce, secret, and alone is the last word that's emphasized. So I'm going to stop this, and then I'm going to do another one. So you can read these one at a time. I don't think that my YouTube will do much more than this amount of time. So I'll send the next one in just a little bit.